Meghan Markle likely expected her Bloomberg interview with Emily Chang to feel like a warm embrace, a glossy media moment that would reset her image and remind the world of her relatable Duchess persona. Instead, it backfired so spectacularly that Megyn Kelly practically turned it into a masterclass in critique. From the very first clips, Kelly's reaction wasn't analysis, it was full-on demolition. What was supposed to be a lighthearted, casual chat over burgers ended up becoming one of Meghan's most tone-deaf public appearances to date, and that's saying something. The biggest flashpoint, the now infamous pantyhose rant. That single comment quickly became shorthand for everything that went wrong. When Emily Chang tossed Meghan an easy question about balancing relatability with royal expectations, Meghan had the perfect chance to appear grounded, someone gracefully blending modernity with tradition. Instead, she complained about nude stockings. She declared she hadn't worn pantyhose since the 80s, presented it as if it were a form of personal oppression, and delivered the line like she'd uncovered some groundbreaking truth. Megyn Kelly's reaction said it all. Sheer disbelief. Millions of women wear uncomfortable work attire every day without framing it as an injustice. Yet here was a duchess treating hosiery like a human rights violation. It didn't just come off as petty, it came across as privilege bordering on parody. And Kelly's critique cut deeper than a quick jab. She pointed out what the pantyhose moment really revealed. Meghan was never interested in the responsibilities of royal life. Service, tradition, protocol. For her, those weren't opportunities, they were shackles. By griping about stockings on Bloomberg, Meghan essentially admitted what critics have said all along. That single remark revealed more than hours of interviews ever could, painting her as small, entitled, and out of touch. The backlash was immediate. Social media piled on, and even loyal fans struggled to defend her. The optics were that bad, but if the pantyhose quip was cringe-worthy, the smashburger exchange was flat-out insulting. In a clear attempt to cast Meghan in a casual, relatable light, Emily Chang took her to a burger joint and lobbed a softball question. When do you feel the least Duchess of Sussex? A thoughtful or lighthearted response could have made Meghan seem approachable. She could have joked about school runs, late-night snacks, or something playful about parenting. Instead, she looked at Chang and declared that sitting there eating burgers with her made her feel the least royal. Think about that. The interviewer traveled to Montecito, armed with flattering questions, and Meghan essentially told her, "Being with you makes me feel ordinary." Megyn Kelly didn't miss the undertone. Meghan had treated someone who bent over backwards to help her as beneath her. It was the exact arrogance critics have accused her of for years, only this time it was captured on camera. Kelly's broader critique was harsh but undeniable. These weren't harmless slip-ups. They were glimpses into Meghan's actual worldview. She doesn't view the media as partners or peers, but as instruments. Even when handled with care, she can't mask her disdain. And when she tries to come across as genuine, she defaults to privileged complaints that instantly alienate the audience. That's why Kelly's takedown hit so hard. She wasn't nitpicking throwaway lines. She was showing how every second of that Bloomberg interview reinforced Meghan's worst traits: entitlement, contradiction, and a fixation on image over substance. What made the spiral even more brutal was how many chances Meghan had to turn it around. After Kelly and her co-host went viral with the Meghan with a Y parody, the smartest move would have been to play along, maybe even lean into the joke with a sketch of her own. That kind of self-deprecating humor has rescued countless celebrities. But Meghan didn't. According to Kelly, it wasn't just a missed opportunity, it was career suicide. Because if there's one thing audiences in Hollywood alike reward, it's the ability to laugh at yourself. Show that, and people forgive almost anything. Kelly's take was blunt. Meghan can't. She doesn't have the humility or self-awareness. And that flaw, Kelly argued, is more damaging to her brand than any single interview misstep. By the end of the Bloomberg sit-down, Meghan had checked every wrong box. She managed to insult her interviewer, whine about hosiery, and squander every chance to connect with everyday people. Kelly's takedown wasn't just a roast. It felt like a eulogy for a public image on life support. And behind the scenes, whispers of panic started to spread. One thing was clear: the humiliation had only just begun. Kelly highlighted one particular moment that left industry insiders stunned: the so-called spaghetti insult. When Emily Chang asked how Meghan handled criticism of her Netflix series, Meghan had a perfect opening to show poise. Instead, she lashed out. She claimed that people mocking her show were secretly at home cooking her recipes, implying her critics were broke, scrambling to make ends meet, and quietly consuming her content all the same. The message was unmistakable. If you criticize Meghan, you must be jealous, bitter, and financially struggling. It landed like a slap, not just to journalists like Kelly, but also to regular viewers who simply didn't enjoy the project. Kelly dismantled the comment with surgical precision. First, she noted the arrogance of assuming all criticism stems from envy. The truth is simple. Many people just didn't like the content and said so openly. Meghan's insistence that even her detractors were secretly obsessed exposed the same self-importance that has shadowed her image for years. Then Kelly twisted the knife. The spaghetti recipe Meghan claimed as her own, it wasn't even hers, it was Martha Stewart's. So not only did Meghan mock her critics for supposedly cooking her dishes, the recipe wasn't original in the first place. The irony was so glaring that Kelly laughed on air, calling it the perfect example of Meghan's shallow branding. The internet didn't hold back either. Social media lit up with memes branding her a single-skill imposter, mocking the tone-deaf assumption that critics were secretly copying her. People pointed out that plenty of them criticize her for free, with zero financial motive. They're simply tired of being lectured by someone living in a $16 million mansion. That one offhand line about spaghetti reinforced what many had long suspected. Meghan doesn't understand her audience. Worse, she doesn't respect them. To Kelly, it wasn't just a clumsy answer. It was a flashing neon sign of how Meghan views the world, through a warped lens of privilege and projection. Another exchange only underscored those contradictions. When Emily Chang asked about the critique that Meghan was glorifying homemaking, the setup was easy. Meghan could have leaned into it, praised the value of family life, and positioned herself as someone celebrating everyday parents. Instead, she brushed it off, claimed she hadn't heard that criticism, and then added a bizarre remark about not having time to churn her own butter. Kelly's response was scathing. Meghan had just built an entire Netflix series around her curated lifestyle. Gardens, chickens, bees, elaborate decor. And yet, when confronted, she acted as though homemaking was a foreign concept. The contradiction was glaring, and it collapsed her whole performance. And Kelly made the larger point. Meghan doesn't actually live the life she markets. According to sources Kelly cited, her domestic empire is run by staff, nannies, chefs, gardeners, housekeepers. So when pressed on homemaking, Meghan couldn't defend it with sincerity. She doesn't do it herself. That's why the butter comment landed so poorly. Instead of acknowledging that she has help but still values the work, Meghan brushed it off, sending the message that homemaking was beneath her. Kelly pointed out that mothers everywhere picked up on the insult instantly. They don't get days off. They juggle kids, jobs, meals, and chores without an army of staff. So watching a duchess dismiss homemaking while showing off a designer chicken coop on Netflix struck audiences as hypocrisy at its peak. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that Meghan's team went into damage control as clips from the interview spread. The pantyhose rant made her seem spoiled. The smash burger quip made her look rude. The spaghetti insult painted her as arrogant. And the homemaking remark exposed her as inauthentic. Together, they built a damning picture. A woman trying to sell authenticity without ever living it. Kelly's commentary resonated because it didn't just highlight Meghan's missteps. It explained why those missteps kept happening as the natural result of a brand built on contradictions. And as Hollywood executives began quietly distancing themselves, the humiliation only deepened. Kelly saved her sharpest critique for Meghan's inability to take a joke, and it cut to the heart of why the Bloomberg sit-down fell so flat. She reminded viewers of the parody sketch that mocked Meghan and Harry so mercilessly it went viral. Instead of laughing it off or leaning into the humor to show she could take a jab, Meghan reportedly fumed behind the scenes and shut down any suggestion of embracing the joke. To Kelly, that wasn't just thin skin, it was proof that Meghan takes herself so seriously she can't imagine poking fun at her own contradictions. And in Hollywood, where reputations are repaired on late-night couches and comedy sketches, that kind of rigidity is poison. Kelly's co-hosts piled on with brutal examples. They pointed to celebrities who had endured public humiliation but managed to bounce back by owning it. Actors who turned scandals into punchlines. Politicians who diffused critics with humor. The playbook is well worn. Meghan had the same chance. She refused. Kelly put it bluntly, if Meghan can't laugh at herself, the audience will never laugh with her. And once the public stops laughing, they stop caring. Without that connection, there's no comeback story to sell. The deeper concern Kelly raised was Meghan's fixation on her critics. In a quip that went viral, Kelly joked that Meghan probably keeps voodoo dolls of journalists and commentators who cross her. While some dismissed it as banter, whispers from former staffers hinted it wasn't far from the truth, at least in spirit. Reports claimed Meghan cataloged every negative headline, screenshotted every unflattering post, and clung to grudges like trophies. Instead of focusing on building projects or reshaping her image, she was said to be consumed with tracking who was against her. Kelly argued this compulsive obsession explained why Meghan's media strategy never evolved. You can't move forward if you're fixated on silencing the past. The Bloomberg debacle didn't just spotlight Meghan's missteps, it reignited old criticisms of her treatment of the royal family. Kelly hammered home the hypocrisy. Meghan often accused others of causing harm, yet her own actions had shaken the monarchy. Kelly went further, suggesting the stress of Meghan and Harry's public attacks weighed heavily on Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip in their final years. The point wasn't literal causation, but the undeniable undeniable toll that family feuds and global scandal can take on elderly figures who spent their lives in service. For audiences already uneasy about Meghan's approach, it was a devastating reminder of how far her narrative strayed from gratitude and duty. One of the sharpest comparisons came when Kelly's panel brought up Norwegian royal princess Märtha Louise and her relationship with an American shaman. Their story is unconventional, messy, even eccentric, but it radiates authenticity. They aren't pretending to be relatable while tightly controlling every frame of their image. They simply live their truth, and people see the difference. That comparison exposed Meghan's contradiction. She talks endlessly about authenticity, but every gesture feels staged. Meanwhile, the Norwegian princess embodies it without explanation, and audiences sense the contrast instantly. It drove home Kelly's central thesis. Meghan's problem isn't bad luck. It's that she's performing a role no one believes anymore. Behind the cameras, Hollywood insiders reportedly saw the same thing. Rumors spread that streaming executives were shelving pitches tied to her. Brand partners were losing interest. Investors who once viewed the Duchess as a commercial goldmine were quietly backing away. The Bloomberg interview was supposed to be a reset, a chance to reframe her image with flattering lighting and softball questions. Instead, it convinced decision makers that Meghan couldn't even handle a safe environment without alienating people. Kelly's verdict was blunt. Meghan Markle is no longer bankable. Her projects don't generate money, her image doesn't inspire, and her interviews spark backlash instead of goodwill. The most devastating part of Kelly's critique wasn't the parody clips or the punchlines. It was the precision with which she framed the core issue. Meghan doesn't know who she is when the performance ends. And until she figures that out, no interview, no Netflix contract, and no lifestyle brand will save her. The Bloomberg appearance showed the world that the mask had slipped. What remained wasn't a relatable Duchess, but a woman so consumed with controlling her image that she couldn't see it collapsing around her. For Kelly, that was the final humiliation, the end of the illusion. And for Meghan, it may mark the beginning of an exile more permanent than anything Buckingham Palace could ever impose.